We've always heard about the musical term standard. They're well-known compositions that have been played numerous times and in various styles in the history of music. Yesterday, Morgh Sahar, and Summertime. These are a few standard examples. Following his obsession with jazz music, Woody Allen brought the concept of a standard to cinema. He followed his legend, Ingmar Bergman, and made cover versions of Bergman's standards. And Fellini's as well. He covered 8.5 at least 2 times throughout his career. But perhaps it has only been mentioned a few times that he has once made an entire cover version of an Ozu film within his cover of Autumn Sonata, September. While titles of Ozu's film seems merely to be a simple wordplay, here the film perfectly represents its title, representing the most striking change in the whole year. Late summer, early autumn, the time to let go of the summer dream. The opening shot of September. Take a look at this cut. What kind of cut is this? Isn't it the same cut as this one? Breaking the 180-degree axis, breaking the space continuity. The horizontal and the vertical stripe lines duplicate all over the image. The lampshade, several vertical lines in the foreground. And now they duplicate on the characters as well.
Les collines peut-être, les animaux.
And on the couch,
Oui, oui.
the window,
Pensez-vous que la campagne est
the
plus
curtains,
que la ville,
and the wooden texture of the wall.
par exemple?
Oui, mais...
There's nothing to see but stripe lines. This is the most dominant feature in all Ozu images throughout his career. A shot from late autumn. The frame is filled with the stripe lines, from right to left to the bottom corner of the foreground. In this frame, filled with patterns and textures, it's as if the motivation to open the door is just to add more lines to the image. If the dominant pattern of the image is a square, the joy of interacting with Ozu cinema is to find variations of a square in every corner of the frame, whether it's complete or a fragmented square, fragmented from the left or from the bottom. Here, these 3 cuts, one after another, establish the square pattern in our minds and reproduce them. The revelation of the 2 ceiling lights in the third shot is like shooting the pattern to the eyes of the viewer. The game of playing with lines is a dynamic game for Ozu. There's nothing repetitious in it. Every film has its own distinctive visual identity. The shots are distinguished by the color, texture, and composition of the lines, whether in different films or in order to develop a motif in a single film. In Tokyo Twilight, the entrance of the house is composed in 4 different states and 4 different lightings throughout the film. The image is filled with lines. Diane West is a moving stripe pattern in the foreground.
When I ask Peter if he wants to go for a drive or take a walk or something, he's always busy writing his novel. But he's got plenty of time to stroll around the lake with her. See? Men. She certainly hasn't lost her
The
yet.
lines of the lampshade in the foreground makes us nervous. The camera isolates the honest plain Mia Farrow in a limited and arranged color palette, completely Ozuian. The door is opened, and as far as the eye can see, there's no color other than the limited color palette of the rest of the frame. Claire Denis' 35 Shots of Rum is a remake of Ozu's Late Spring, but not only in the storyline. The conversation scene between the father and the daughter, which comes straight out of Ozu's film, also recreates the Ozuian color palette with precision. Blue, brown, and a touch of red. In his testament, Happy End, Michael Haneke evokes his cinematic obsessions. The icons of French cinema, Mr. Badii from Taste of Cherry, the judge and his dog from Kieślowski's Red, and his homage to Japan, the neat Ozuian color palette. Mia Farrow's skin, hair, and dress settle neatly in the shot's brown and blue spectrum. Blue, brown, and a touch of red. On this late summer night, the rain starts. The lights go out. This is a chance for Woody Allen to recreate an Ozu artistic device.
Kill our evening. The Richmonds aren't coming. We're lucky. They're so boring.
Why did you invite them? Yeah.
Oh, God.
I love walking around in the pitch black.
In Ozu's cinema, the space is just as important, if not more, as the characters. The red bucket in the least important section of the shot is probably more alive than the actors. The space is more important than the characters. Here, the teapot is the mutual element between the shots. By following the teapot, we grasp the space in an unusual way. We witness the potential of the presence of an object in a fixed point. The presence of teapot in this room and the experience of its presence in the same spot in another room. By showing the teapot in the exact same place throughout the film, he makes us miss it when it's not there. In a master shot, before we go to the table, the actors are masked so that the columns wouldn't have to, and maximum possible lines can fit on the image.
I'm having a hard time.
A long take, 2 consecutive reframing.
Tries to hide it latest.
With each reframe, we see a more pure and dense texture in the lines of the image. As the obsession amplifies, the shot becomes closer and closer, and the lines overlap in different variations.
I mean, if I do it, I can protect her. Somebody's gonna write it.
At this point, these are not just characters anymore. These are a series of figures to make the lines move in the different layers of the image.
You know, people staring at her as she walks down the street.
I don't know.
These lines are narrating the film. These erected red lines, projecting the inflamed lust of the 2 characters.
Guilt-ridden. Just very tense.
I don't know.
Interior shots with deep depth of field, with intertwined doors and frames. The actions become masked. The objects become visible and invisible. Elimination within movement. It makes us nervous. Our focus shifts to the overlapping textures, patterns, and colors, side by side, on top of each other, compelling us to compare them to one another. Their shapes become variations of each other. Ozu is a part of the genome of cinema history, and the history of cinema is full of his coded zones. Fassbinder's The Third Generation, where Ozu's deep shots combine with pan and tracking shots. A complex story about the terrorist group that you don't necessarily need to understand. The texture of the image makes us nervous enough.
Ganz hübsch hier reich. Aber so in das Beste an Berlin.
Haben Sie Hunger?
Nein, danke. Ich esse wenig. Ich bin in Afrika abgegeben.
And again, overlapping textures, elimination within movement, and the color palettes narrate the film. You can ignore the narrative motivation of the movements. It's as if the characters are moving to just walk through and constantly add to the lines.
Du hast sicher davon gehört, groß und klein, das Neueste vom Brutto Strauß. Ach, mein Gott, du ahnst nicht, wie sensibel er das Leben einer Frau schildert. Und die Schaubühne. Na, du weißt ja, exzellent wie immer. Und perfekt natürlich. Ausgefeilt ins kleinste Detail. Oh, Hilde, du hast eine neue Bluse. Mein Gott, ist die schick.
Oh, und so kostbar, das sieht man gleich.
Tja,
Christy Puyo's Aurora takes the path of abstraction to its extremes. Aurora and her twin Sierra Nevada are meaningless titles in the context of the film, just like Ozu's titles, a combination of a tendency towards abstraction and not taking the name seriously. The main character is a shadow of Jeff Costello in Los Samurai. Puyo as the main character is a code for us to know that this is all a joke. Aurora takes the path of character abstraction to its extremes. Convert them to moving lines, to color spots.
Ce mai faci? Cum merge cu pompa? Păi tu nici nu te-ai apucat încă? Auzi, unde ești? Trebuie să te duci la bricosturi, să iei niște șpacuri, ca lumea.
The moments when the character dissolves in the color palette of the scene by moving. Just like this scene, the man takes off his clothes to blend in with the color palette of the scene, to be dissolved in it. A minimalistic design, a compact duplication of color and pattern. The film is screaming on what we have to notice. The man in the depth of the frame manipulates the lines just before our eyes. The refrigerator door opens to intensify the square pattern. Unlike Ozu's polished fantasy world, Aurora can come across merely as random and sloppy. But this image, with its deep depth of field and the duplication of the square pattern even up to the house across the street, can rightly be a contemporary cover version of Ozu's cinema. Musicians cover standard pieces not just for fun, but to express their personal style. Is all this really about Ozu? Maybe it's not. Maybe this is not about the films influenced by Ozu, but it is a kind of journey in the history of cinema with the sensitivity that watching Ozu's films has created in the eyes of the beholder.